Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions. I want to thank you for watching this June 2019 weather outlook for Farm Credit Illinois. This map will come as no surprise to anyone watching the video. This is a map showing you the last 30 days of total accumulated precipitation, and we can see that sections of Illinois have seen over a quarter, and in some locations we're approaching a third of their annual rainfall just in the last 30 days. Some of the colors that you see here, if you get anything that is brighter than that, so in this direction, we're talking about getting over 10 inches of rain just in the last 30 days. And as a consequence of this, we know where this has put us in terms of planting progress. But I'm going to give you some interesting statistics here. When we look at Illinois for the month of May, we have data that go back to 1895. And right now, May 2019, which is sitting right here, ranks fourth all time in our wettest Mays here. Only 1995, 1943 and 1933 were wetter than May of 2019. Now, when we look at the entire last year, so let's just go from this May all the way back to last June, it is the second wettest on record. So right here, the only other time period that was wetter than this was 1926 to 1927, right there. Now, interestingly enough, that 12-month time period, June to May, the state of Illinois has actually increased its average annual precipitation by over 4 inches. So with time, the longer-term trend is for us to be getting wetter. But let's talk about the pattern that got us in here, because this is one we have to be on the lookout for. What made this past May so volatile, and even the end of April, was that the jet stream was really screaming across the Pacific, and it dug into a deep trough here out west. And that deep trough is what allows, at the surface, plenty of Gulf moisture to run right up into the middle part of the country and interact with weather systems in this area. And it was just round after round after round. Some locations across the state of Illinois over the last 45 days have seen 30 of those 45 days with rainfall. And as a consequence of that, we've also had a lot of severe weather. In total here, there are over 700 separate tornado warnings across the United States, and Illinois has had its fair share of adverse weather. Currently, 2019 ranks third in the last 15 years as being the third most active severe weather season we've had so far. In addition to that, we've seen squall lines like the one you see here. This one was racing through parts of central Illinois back on May 26th. And as it came through early in the morning here, we actually produced on the leading edge of that squall line 3 separate small tornadoes, did a lot of damage in the Champaign-Urbana area. So we have had Mother Nature throwing us a lot of curveballs to start off this season. And it's no wonder that right now, 2019 across the entirety of the United States is by far the slowest planting progress we have made, and the data I have shown you here go back to the 1990s. We are in record territory. This is unprecedented, and therefore it's going to be very hard to pick out an analog year to say what 2019 is going to be like. But currently, as of week 22, we're at 68% planted across the country. And what's helping drive that? Well, look at the numbers per state. Corn planting progress here for the state of Illinois, minus 53% of our 5-year average as of the June 3rd report. You can see much of the Eastern Corn Belt is struggling, as is parts of South Dakota. But outside of that, everybody is in deficit, with the exception of Texas. Soybeans, we have a very similar story. Look here across the Eastern Corn Belt. Look over here in parts of South Dakota. These are the areas that are in really bad shape right now in terms of being delayed in planting. Now, recently, when I saw the jet stream really retreat, see it here? It's now retreated up into Canada. We've lost the really strong southern branch that could cause a lot of problems. Well, if I would have seen this, I've seen this recent pattern change, we normally would have been forecasting a drier time period. But there is a little shortwave coming through here, and it's meeting up with a tropical disturbance that's come out of the Bay of Campeche. And as a result, it is, and there it is really going to make this first couple of weeks of June very, very wet. So this is the tropical disturbance that we're talking about, shoving its moisture to the north. And look what we're seeing here from June 4th out through the next 10 days, as shown by the European model. Remember, we're at a point right now that any rain is too much rain. So you can see there across the southern portions of the state, as this tropical pulse of moisture gets into that area, we could be picking up another inch to, in some locations, 3 inches of rain. It is drier to the north, but also remember this. We've seen multiple rounds of thunderstorms across the northern part of Illinois just in the beginning here of June. That has slowed those folks down and kept them out of the fields. If there's been a place that's made any progress, it's been central Illinois, which has actually put together a string of nicer days to start off the month of June. But any rain that we get here across the eastern Corn Belt is just going to be too much. You can even see there's a few days here where we're going to get multiple showers and thunderstorms screaming through the northern part of the Corn Belt. So when we add this all up, we expect delays to continue, although this has been a week for many where they've gotten a lot of planting done. So the big question we want to talk about as we finish up this video is, where are we going? Is June going to continue to see this? Well, if we just stretch this out toward the end of June, we're looking now at the last week in June. What are the models saying the jet stream is going to do? Well, currently it looks as though it's going to favor a flow pattern that's going to do something like this. Now, overall, what does a flow pattern like that mean? Well, if we really wanted to get hot and dry in June, okay, if we want to especially get hot in June, we've got to have a much more pronounced ridge right over the Great Lakes states. And we currently don't see that. And what I'm trying to say here is that the chances of us getting a hotter and drier June are right now not in the cards. That same flow pattern that's doing something like this is more than likely going to keep a lot of the Corn Belt on the cooler side of things, not cold, but on the cooler side of things. And with some northwest flow and a Gulf of Mexico that's not shut down, we can see these same longer term models keeping many of the folks here in the Great Lakes states and in the eastern Corn Belt wetter than average. So if the models are right, what does that mean in terms of our longer term consequences? Well, this is brand new. It just came out early in the morning on the 5th of June. And what we see here is that the forecast by the European model is really wanting to keep a lot of this quarter right in through here near average or below average in temperature. Now, when you see this bullseye down here in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, remember the temperature scale, which is over here, this is only about 3 degrees cooler than average. But anything cooler than average is slowing us down in the progress of this crop. As we slide into July, it looks as though the long-range models are picking up on this cooler, wetter pattern to stick around through the early part of our season. But remember this, in 2019, we're going to have to treat the month of July as if it was June normally, given the slow progress of this crop. So I want to bring you to this kind of conclusive slide. And let's start right down there in the bottom where I have the if the models are right statement. If these long-range forecast models, which have been consistent, are right, I expect a very slow progression of the growing season. The accumulation of grain to greeter units will not be like we saw in 2018 where they were very quick in accumulating. We're going to push pollination back. It's already probably going to be at least 3 weeks late for many folks. Disease pressure is going to be an issue. Stand quality, think about what root structure would look like if soils stay wet and things stay cool. And also our soybeans are going to miss the summer solstice here because they're going to be late. Is there any hint, look at this last statement down here, is there any hint of a late season pattern change? And what about the hurricane season? Well, what we're going to watch is a few things here. One, we currently have a weak El Nino, but the animation you're watching down there in the bottom left, we could be moving some of this cooler water up toward the surface. So this top line here, this is the surface of the Pacific Ocean. It's that same circle you see right there, and this is the depth of the water and its temperature difference from normal. So the cooler water you see surfacing here is going to weaken this El Nino event. At the same time, I am paying close attention to the cooler water you see off the west coast that does extend down to the Baja. Now, if that cooler water were to spread and cover this whole area that I'm kind of shading in here, this could mean some late season dryness and heat we're going to have to watch. But the last factor here, what about hurricanes? Right now in the Gulf, over here in the western Atlantic, and right here in the main development region, the water temperatures are very warm. And with a weakening El Nino, that's not going to shut down our hurricane season. So we have a lot to be worried about, and it feels as though we've taken the top-end potential off of this crop already by this late planting date, but the slow progression through the season, plus some risks later on in the season, mean that 2019 is shaping up to be one of these years that is just going to be tough to grow a really good crop. Now, we will be keeping a very close eye on the progression of the weather systems throughout the upcoming days and weeks. We're going to have to live within a 2-week window on our forecasting, knowing that the longer range models are seeing these things. Okay? With that, I'm going to go and wrap up this video right there. We at Farm Credit Illinois and at Nutrient Ag Solutions, thank you for your attention. We hope you look forward to all of our updates coming out soon. Thank you.